There is a moment, a specific moment. You're sitting at your desk, same chair, same coffee mug, and something inside you cracks, not breaks, cracks, like a fault line opening up under the surface of a life that looks perfectly fine from the outside. You have a job, a salary, health insurance, a parking spot with your name on it, and you are suffocating. That crack, that's not a crisis, that's a door. But here's what nobody tells you about that door. On the other side, there is no map. Most people never open it. Not because they don't feel the crack. They feel it every single day. In the Sunday night dread. In the performance reviews that reduce them to a number. In the quiet calculation they run every month. How many more years until I can leave? They stay because the crack feels more manageable than the unknown. They stay because they were taught, not by one person, but by an entire system, that security is the highest form of intelligence, that freedom is a luxury reserved for the reckless, the privileged, or the irresponsible. They were taught wrong. Security is not intelligence. Security is a contract, and like every contract, it has fine print. The fine print says, in exchange for stability, you surrender authorship of your own time. In exchange for a guaranteed income, you accept a ceiling. In exchange for never risking everything, you accept never fully owning anything. Most people sign that contract without reading it. They signed it at 22, fresh out of college, terrified of the blank space ahead, and they're still paying the terms at 45, wondering why the ceiling feels lower every year. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel was 34 when the crack appeared. Senior analyst, good company, solid reputation, mortgage, one car payment, a life that, on paper, was everything his parents had hoped for him. Daniel had an idea for a business, had been running the numbers in his head for 2 years. Not a fantasy, a real, calculated, viable thing. He had the skills, he had the contacts, he had the plan. What Daniel didn't have was permission, not from his boss, not from the law, from himself. Because every time he got close to the edge of the decision, his brain would flood with images, the empty bank account, the conversation with his wife, the look on his mother's face. And underneath all of it, one quiet, devastating sentence that had been installed in him long before he ever earned his first paycheck. People like us don't take risks like that. So Daniel didn't leave, he stayed. Kept optimizing within the contract, got promoted once, twice, kept running the numbers in his head, but now the business idea was 4 years old, then 6, then 10, and somewhere around year 10, Daniel stopped running the numbers, not because the idea got worse, because he did, not in performance, in aliveness. Something essential had gone quiet inside him, the part that believed the door was real, that believed he could walk through it and survive. That's not a financial story. That's a psychological one, and it's the most expensive thing Daniel ever lost. Here's the paradox nobody talks about. Security doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you still. And stillness, over time, is its own kind of risk, a slow risk, a risk with no alarm bells, no crisis moment, no visible emergency. Just a gradual erosion of the capacity to move, to adapt, to build something of your own. The person who stays inside the security of a salary for 20 years is not protected from financial disaster. They are simply concentrating all their financial risk into one single point of failure: the job. One restructuring, one acquisition, one new boss who doesn't like their face, one industry disrupted by technology. And the safe choice turns out to have been the most dangerous one of all. Freedom, real financial freedom, is not a single dramatic leap. It's the construction, over time, of multiple structures that don't depend on any single source. It's the slow, disciplined, often uncomfortable process of moving from one stream of income to many, from one employer to many clients, from dependence to architecture. But you cannot start building that architecture from inside the contract. You have to break something first, not recklessly, strategically, but you have to break it. There are 3 lies that keep people inside the contract. The first lie is that leaving means falling. Most people imagine the moment of departure as a free fall, as if the safety net of the salary is the only thing standing between them and the ground. What they don't see is that the fall is already happening, slowly, invisibly, inside the contract. The erosion of agency, the compression of possibility, the slow accumulation of "I'll do it next year." The second lie is that freedom is earned by the prepared. I'll leave when I have 6 months of expenses saved. I'll leave when the business is already generating income. I'll leave when I feel ready. Readiness is a myth. Nobody who ever built something significant felt ready before they started. Readiness is a feeling that comes after action, not before. The brain will always generate one more reason to wait, because waiting is safer. But safer for what? For the contract, not for you. The third lie, and this is the most dangerous one, is that security is something you receive from the outside. You were taught to look for security in an institution, a title, a guaranteed paycheck. So when you leave those things behind, you feel naked, exposed, like you've lost something fundamental. But security was never outside you. Security is a capacity. It's the accumulated evidence that you can solve problems, adapt to new situations, generate value, survive difficulty. Every person who has ever built financial freedom did it not by finding a safer place, but by becoming a more capable person. The terror you feel at the edge of the decision is not a signal to go back. It's a signal that you're finally close to where growth actually happens. Let's talk about what the crossing actually looks like. Because here's what the motivational content won't tell you. The first phase of freedom is harder than the last phase of security. Let's return to Daniel, but a different version, the one who finally opened the door. When that Daniel handed in his resignation letter, the first 3 months were brutal. Not because his idea was wrong, because his nervous system had been trained for predictability and was now receiving none. The income was inconsistent. Some weeks felt like proof he was right. Other weeks felt like evidence he was foolish. The silence of his inbox on a Friday afternoon, no meetings, no notifications, no performance metrics, felt less like freedom and more like abandonment. What Daniel had to learn was that the discomfort wasn't failure. It was calibration. His entire internal system, his relationship with risk, with value, with money, with his own judgment, was being rebuilt from scratch. Every small win was recalibrating his sense of capacity. Every difficulty was recalibrating his ability to navigate uncertainty. Every decision he made without asking for permission was slowly dissolving the invisible ceiling that had been pressed down on him for 15 years. By month 8, something had shifted. Not the income. The income was still uneven, still growing, still not what it would eventually become. What shifted was his relationship with himself, the quiet, devastating sentence that had been installed in him, "People like us don't take risks like that," had lost its authority. It was still there, but it was a memory now, not a command. And that shift, that internal, psychological, almost invisible shift, was worth more than any number in a bank account, because it was the shift that made the number possible. You are here because you feel the crack. Maybe it appeared recently, maybe it's been there for years, and you've been very disciplined about not looking at it directly. Either way, it's yours, and it's not going away. The question is not whether to open the door. The question is how to cross the threshold with intelligence, not recklessness, with strategy, not impulsivity, with the understanding that what you're building on the other side is not just a new source of income, but a new version of yourself, someone who owns their time, someone who builds instead of waits, Someone who measures risk not by the fear it generates, but by the cost of never having taken it. You were not built for the contract. The contract was built to contain people who believe they were built for the contract. You already know the difference. The crack told you. Now build the door. If this landed somewhere real for you, share it with someone who's been feeling the crack and doesn't have the words for it yet. And if you want to go deeper on the psychological mechanisms that keep people inside the contract, the next video is already waiting for you.